We realize that a lot of people, young girls, don't know what it is to be an engineer, so they don't choose that. So we want to make sure that they are aware of what's our nice and beautiful profession.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Iron Ring. I'm Alexandra, a civil engineering student.
And I'm Alessandra, an industrial engineering student.
And in today's episode, we'll be discussing the misrepresentation of women and the gender gap in the engineering industry at the provincial level. Today we have on Kathy Baig. She has a chemical engineering degree from Polytechnique Montreal and an MBA from HEC Montreal. She is currently the president of Ordre of Engineers Quebec. We're so excited to have her on today. So welcome, Madame Baig, and thank you so much for joining us today in our episode today of this podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be there with you today.
Of course. So in this discussion today that we'll be having about the misrepresentation and of women and the gender gap in the engineering industry, as well as you being the president of the OIQ, we wanted to first kind of get a sense of how this issue is represented in Quebec. And to do that, we wanted to maybe compare it to the national level. So what's happening in Canada versus what's happening in Quebec. And so Engineers Canada says that 21% of newly licensed engineers are women. Now, do you feel that Quebec represents this well, or would you say that we are better or even worse off than at the national level?
I would like to say that we're better, but it's not the case. But we're not worse than the rest of the country. So the equivalent of the engineering training in Quebec, we are actually near 20% of women in this status. So I think you said that the rest of the country is 20% for the new license. So we're not too far from that. So I would say we're equivalent to the rest of the country.
Okay, great. And would there be something that you attribute this to? Maybe that Quebec is doing something that is good, that keeps us at this level?
So even though we're only at 20% in the IT engineering training, I think that we need to acknowledge that it's an increase compared to the past. So in the 90s, we were much lower than that. I don't know the exact number, but I think that we increased something like from 4% to 15-20% in the last years. So there's a huge increase. But again, even though it has increased, it's not enough for what we want. If you look across our 65,000 members, so not only in the EIT, but all our members, we are only at 15%. So there's again a lot of work to be doing to increase that number.
So we're like well on our way.
Yes. And I don't know if we'll talk about it later, but we're putting a lot of effort at OIQ. Engineers Canada that you just spoke earlier, it's launched a program that it's called 30 by 30. And I hope that everybody knows that program. If not, they should be aware of it. And the purpose is to get 30% of women in the new licenses in 2030. So at OIQ, we're putting a lot of effort in that program. We have 3 different initiatives, and we're really hoping to get that 30% by 2030. I'm a little bit competitive, but in a good way. And I'm really hoping that Quebec will be one of the provinces who will reach that number in 2030 or earlier. Hopefully, that would be really great. So we have 3 different initiatives to achieve that.
Okay,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's great
on
to
issues like that. I think it's good to be competitive.
Before the pandemic, there was because how it works is that they have champions in every provinces. And before the pandemic, we were all gathering once a year somewhere in the country to talk about all the efforts that each province are doing. And it's amazing to see all the country working together to achieve that goal. There are provinces that are working really, really hard. And there's a positive competition between all those provinces. So it's really nice to see it. And when I first started to be a champion in Quebec, what I wanted to do is that I don't think that it's only the OIQ can achieve the goal. So first, what we did is we had the roundtable where we invited all the stakeholders that could have an influence to achieve that goal. So the university, different organizations, and it's really nice to see also because few years later, now all those stakeholders are having programs in their own university or in their own organization to try to achieve that goal. So it's not only OIQ in Quebec, it's a lot of stakeholders that are working together to achieve the goal. So I'm confident that we should be one of the province who would be able to achieve that goal.
And that's amazing, especially as both of us being engineering students in Quebec. It's amazing to hear that, especially women engineering students, that it's amazing that we're getting to that goal, and especially you as the president being so adamant and so, like you said, competitive in doing this. It's
in a good way.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very, very it's great to hear that, and we're really happy about that.
It's sad to say, but all the money, the fees that we receive, it's to public protection. So we don't have that much of resources to put as much as we would like to do. So we had to be creative and try to find where are the main place where we could have an impact. So we did first a diagnosis and an analysis to really see where we should put our efforts. And it came out that there's 3 different key moments that we believe that are a place that we can have an impact and influence. The first one is at the high school before they choose their math and science decision. I think it's around 3rd grade high school. So what we want is that, because if you don't make that choice at that point, it's really hard to go back after, because when you get to Cégep and then you realize that you close that door, you will no longer to be able to go in science program in Cégep. So we have nearly, I think, 200, 300 ambassadors. They are mostly women, and they go into high school before the 3rd grade to meet them. And so they are modeled to them. They explain what it is to be an engineer, and they answer their question, and they do a small group exercise. It's to construct a condo for a bee. So it's reflect what it is to be an engineer, because you have constraints, you have challenges, and you have to work together to find solution. And so they do that with them. So they have a sense of what it is to be an engineer. And the purpose is to tell them, please choose science, mathematics, and all those things, to make sure to not close that door. So that's one of our first initiative. The third one, very quickly, is the one in Cégep. So it's the moment where you decide what you will do at the university. And I remember that at that time, I did not even know what was doing an engineer. I've chosen this profession without knowing what it is. And when we did our diagnosis, we realized that a lot of people, young girls, don't know what it is to be an engineer. So they don't choose that. So we want to make sure that they are aware of what's our nice and beautiful profession. So we're doing like a lunch or conferences with women in engineering that exposing what it is to be. So it will maybe help them to make the right decision. And at the end, the other program, it's the university program. It's a mentor program. So sometimes women find it difficult when they start university. So we want to link them with an engineer that is a woman to help them if they have issue and everything. So those are 3 programs that will help to increase the numbers. So we're putting a lot of efforts in that. And I would like to thank all the ambassadors and the volunteers that are working with us to do all those initiatives. So those are the programs that
I think it really targets like each kind of individual problems, or every stage where you might lose some of that female kind of participation, or in high school, in Cégep, and in university. There's always a number of females that either drop out or leave the profession or the studies. So that's really nice to hear. And I think we all share common initiatives that are very similar to just, it's everyone together, just trying to do the same thing and keep everyone engaged and empowered to continue their studies in engineering.
I was going to say that I think I can speak for the both of us when we say that everything you spoke on is exactly how we felt during our kind of journey into this industry and into this program, especially myself, when you were talking about high school, I didn't do my sciences and physics in high school. And then SAGEP, I was in commerce. So I think right away, like you're saying, yes, I chose to do engineering, but not many girls or women will feel that way because they think, oh, I've been set back because I didn't do those things. So I think it's really important, like you're saying. I would have loved to have that at that point, and I think that would have incredibly. It's great that you're trying to push women to open their doors, whether they use it or not, to pursue, because you never know. A lot of women don't know about their science kind of their interest in sciences until a certain point. So I'm really happy to hear that.
All three initiatives, because for me, I did the sciences. My parents always told me that that's the door that needed to stay open, if you will.
Good
but
parents.
then but then I didn't have any like role models or someone whose career I wanted to emulate.
Yeah.
And it was only in university when I was doing actually biochemistry that I came across someone who worked in engineering who was like, I think that this is the career path you should choose. And like you said, I had no idea what engineers do.
Exactly.
In my head, I was typical hard hat, whatever. You walk around, you supervise. And I was like, I don't see myself doing that. But the reality is that it's endless possibilities in engineering. And you need to educate people on that so that they can make an educated choice.
So that, I totally agree with you. And that's when we did the diagnosis, we realized that young women don't know what it is to be an engineer. They don't have model. They don't have anyone to ask question about it. So that's why we have ambassadors on the field that is there to explain what it is and to show how it's not only working with robots or motors. It's much more than that. There's the caring aspects. There's the relation with everyone. There's a lot of human side of the profession that they do not see. So that's why. So you're a perfect example of why we have decided those initiatives.
We're firm believers in those initiatives.
I'm very excited to see this play through. I'm so happy that the next generation will be able to be offered these things. So it's great.
Okay, so our next question is based on a study we read from Stemming the Tide. Roughly 30% of women who do earn an engineering degree in the United States will quit and never work in the profession due to poor organizational structure. In your opinion, is this a good representation of what we see in Quebec?
Honestly, I don't want to give you some wrong answer or false answers. I don't have those statistics here in Quebec. We don't have those data. We don't know how much students graduate and did not decide to go to the engineering profession or have started and decided to leave after. But I wouldn't be surprised that it would be similar. The only data that I'm having that is close to that is that we made a survey to the engineers, and 26% of the women already thought of leaving the profession compared to 13% of the women, of the men, sorry. So, but this is only an intention that we have data, but really taking action on, I don't have data about that. But we know that women in our profession feel that they're experiencing more discrimination than men. So maybe it's our reality here also that it's sad, but I cannot confirm it with facts and data.
That's okay. And do you think it's due to the organizational structures within companies? Like, do you think that plays a role in why people, once they do enter the profession, might consider leaving?
So we made a survey to our engineers, women and men, and we compared data, and we wanted to know how they felt about the profession and working in engineering. And as I said earlier, women feel that they're experiencing more discrimination than men. So I think it's 45% of the women that feel that had already in their career felt some discrimination. This discrimination comes from different reasons. So the main one was that they feel that they don't have access to promotion as equal as men. Everything that's regarding salaries, they feel that they have lower salaries or don't have the same chance to get bonus or things like that. And we did another survey that showed that still today in 2021, women's salary in engineering are lower. I think, and this number I'm not too sure, but I think it's close to 17% lower than the men. So it's just not a perception, it's a fact. The other reason that they feel more discrimination, it's because they feel that they have less opportunities, less responsibilities. So those are all reasons that they feel discriminated compared to men. And we took those data, and let's say in the engineering, 45% of the women feel that they experience discrimination. And I wanted to know, is it the same thing in the public in general? So we did another survey with those questions in the public in general. And in general, women in their career felt that they experience discrimination at 15% of the women. So when you compare the discrimination perception in the engineering field compared to the rest of the jobs, it's 3 times more in the profession. So there's work to be done here.
Yes.
That's one of the main reasons why OIQ, in addition to the other 3 initiatives that I talked earlier, I've decided to prepare a guide for the employers to help them see what are the issues. And the purpose of this guide, it's to improve the quality of the women in their work life and help employers to see what are the issue and take actions about it. So I don't know exactly if it answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the reality here that we're seeing. The one thing I want to say, because when I say that, I feel bad because I'm worried that young women will hear that and will say, oh no, I'm not going to that profession. And 2 things I'd like to say in that same survey. We asked women if they would recommend our profession to their daughter, or their son. And we want the best for kids. And near 9 out of 10 women said that they would recommend it to their daughter or son. So it's not that dark. And we asked them if they were happy in their job, and 84% said yes. The other thing I'd like to share is that yes, 45% of women experience discrimination through their career, but in their actual job, it goes down to maybe 26%. So it seems like it has decreased over time. And I think with the OIQ guide and other initiative and all the discussion and all those podcasts, it makes people being more aware of the situation. And I think it will just get better and better in the future. So I don't want to send a wrong message to the young women that are thinking of coming in the profession. But on the other side, I think that we need to look at the reality and work on it to improve the conditions.
It was a good segue kind of into our next question. We wanted to talk a bit about the problems that women engineers face. And what are some of the solutions that we could do to that? So you did mention that a guide for corporations, for companies. So is that where the efforts should be focused? Like it should be up to companies to really set the stage for more equality in this field?
It's a good question, and I would not put all the pressure on the employers. I think it's a matter of everyone to improve the condition of women in our work life. But I think that employers have a lot of power to change things because they are the one who's deciding. So that's why we talked a lot at the office to who should we talk to, and we decided that it was to the employers. So there's a lot of things that they can do, they can be aware, and they can change. And this guide has been built with the best practices. Anne-Marie Bouraga, who's the one who wrote that guide at OIQ, and she did a really good job. She spoke with a lot of organization engineering who's hiring a lot of women to know what's the best practice. She went to all the literature. We had a roundtable with a lot of people around it to hear what they were thinking, and we put what we think is the best to help the employers to improve the condition. So yes, I think the employers is one of them, but I think it's everyone. Men and women on a daily basis can make a difference. And I think that men has a real role to help that. If they see things, they can intervene, they can take action, they can influence, even though they're not the one that are deciding. So I think it's a matter of everyone, not only the employers. And I think that the hashtag #MeToo, I remember that. I really, one of the things that changed to me when that happened is that I got the impression that men felt that they had a role in those situations and they can take action. If they see something and it should not happen, they can intervene, they can do something. So to me, for obviously the problem will be solved together, men and women together.
Yes.
It's obvious for me.
Especially when men take up the majority of the profession. Yeah. If women are the only ones doing this, we're a little bit of a lower voice out there, and they have the bigger voice than everyone else. So it is, like you said, it is a kind of a teamwork that we have to go through with this. So that's exactly it. And I completely agree that we need to all be on the same page and all be working towards the same goal. This isn't only just for us, but it's really for the industry itself. And so I think as well, still in kind of the realm of the workforce, this kind of takes us to our next question, where we've seen that there is a significant labor shortage in Canada, and apparently Quebec is one of the worst. So among the sectors that are the most affected, the manufacturing and the construction sector are two of them. And now we know these two sectors engineers work very closely in. So do you think that diversifying these jobs and empowering more women to fill them will close this skill gap?
So regarding the lack of resources for those domains, yes, I think that more women in engineering will help us to fill that gap. And also, I don't know the word in English, foreign engineers that are coming outside of the country. Yeah. So also they are labor work that it's important to integrate to our society. So we're not talking a lot about it today, but OIQ is putting a lot of effort to make sure that they also get licensed. So I think that's our two options that will help to reduce the gap of resources. But we need to be aware that in those two, manufacturing and construction, when you look the appetite of the interest of the women, it's a little bit lower than the men. So I think also in those, in construction and manufacturing, we need to expose what it is that they're exactly doing and show them how fun it is to work in those sectors. And I've worked in manufacturing at IBM, and honestly, I loved it. And I would return because it's when the production line stop, and the problem and the teamwork that you're working together to solve issues. I really love manufacturing. It's really a nice sector. And I think that we need to explain that to women in engineering so they can go to that field. And I was lucky. I also work in construction. I went to the Montreal airport, and I was one of the project leader to all the construction in the airport. And it's an amazing job to work in this environment. So yes, I think we can maybe reduce the gap, but there's work to be done to attract women more in those sectors. If we look to different sectors, the sectors that women like the most, that have more interest twice than men, is the public sector. And you can ask yourself why. And I think it's because the work-life balance, it's probably in their mind easier in this area. So maybe that's why, and more stability. And so maybe that's why they are more attracted to this sector. So there's a reflection to be made so we can attract more women in construction and manufacturing. And maybe we could be inspired to understand why they want to go into the public sector and show them that maybe it's feasible to have those conditions in the other sectors. Yeah. And the women that are listening to us and students, honestly, I've done both manufacturing and construction, and I really loved it. I'm not just saying that because I want to attract young girls into it doesn't change anything to me. But when you experience it and you see it, it's really teamwork. And when you build things, it really makes sense to your life and what you're doing as your job. So it's really two nice sectors. Yeah.
Okay. So it's safe to say that it's not really, like we said, like black and white. We really have to maybe start at the education level and work our way from there.
Yes, I think so. But even after, I think it's not too late. I think it's not too late. They should be open to opportunities, and maybe they have started in a field of sectors and they don't like it that much. So I think that even after, we can promote those sectors and show them how beautiful it is and nice to work in those environments. And maybe they could just try it and they could be surprised at how they will like it. So yes, as much as earlier as possible, but I think it's never too late. And that's the beauty of our profession, because it opens so much doors. So that's the reason I didn't know exactly what was doing an engineer when I decided to go into that. But I had the impression that it would open a lot of doors. And I've used in my career a lot of those doors. So I work in manufacturing and then in R&D for the US Navy. And then I worked for Montreal Airport in construction. And then I went as president of the OIQ. I went into Johnson & Johnson in pharmaceutical products. So it opens so many doors. I think it's one of the main force of our profession. So take chance, try it, and you might like it more than you believed it before.
Yeah, and there's no shame in having to test out a few things before you find the right one.
Yeah.
So like you said, very encouraging to hear that.
Especially even, I think when you leave university, you still don't necessarily know what sector you want to work in. So it's wonderful to hear as someone who's finishing in a few weeks.
Oh, and you'll see there'll be so much opportunities that it will be very tough to decide which one. And sometimes you think that you will like this and you will try it and it's not exactly what you were expecting. So you'll be free to try and test other. But I like to say that 30 by 30, yes. So it acknowledged that it's not only in Quebec the problem, and it's across the country. But it's also important to know that it's not only in Canada, this reality. So we looked some numbers, and let's say it's 20% women in new licensing. That's what we said. If we compare into other country, United States, I think it's 14%. Japan is 17%. And France, around 20% of women in the engineering profession, compared to at OIQ, we're 15% actually in the entire membership. So to me, it's important to know that it's not only Quebec, it's not only Canada. I think it's a worldwide reality, and we all need to work on that.
Absolutely, yes. And that's, again, bringing awareness that this is not just a problem here. It's a global problem, and it's whatever we do here in Quebec hopefully can also do a ripple effect into other areas. Maybe if people see what we're doing, then they emulate that and things like that. So none of the efforts go to waste, whether it's just in Quebec, that can still, feed into the rest of the world. So
I guess engineering is really everywhere.
Exactly.
And I guess more diversity and women and people from everywhere. It's necessary, I think. Like when you have a team that's very diverse, that's what we've learned. I think that those are more factual than perception. A diverse team just excels more.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. And so yes, we've talked about all of these projects and all of these solutions, but we want to hear from you. Why do you believe it is so important to be attracting more women to the industry, so much so that there are these many projects around to do such?
There's many reasons. You just said one. So all studies show that to be more innovative, to have a better collaboration, you need to have a diversity. To increase your innovation. If you have only same people that are thinking the same way, they will always finish at the same place. So I think it's all well known that women are not thinking always as men. So to increase innovation, for sure, for me, we need to have a minimum amount of women to have their view into this innovation that we're going on today. So for innovation, I think it's really required. The other reason I would say it's because, how can I say that? The needs are not the same for the women and the men. So even though you want to think of the needs of the women, if you're not a woman, you will not be like thinking the same way. So we have different issues actually around the world in our society. And those issues, if it's only men that are there to think of those issues, we might only solve, I don't know how to say it, but issues that concern more men, you understand, or with their view. So I think that for the needs of our society, we need to have women that will bring what's important to them also. Another example is that crash car dummies. I've wrote that most of the tests were made with crash car dummies male, but women body does not react in the same way. So maybe if we would have more women around the table, we would have thought earlier that we should have crash car dummies for women to see what's the impact. So the needs of the women are not the same. The needs of our society, the women in our society. So I think we need to have those women around the table to make sure that. So that's the third reason, the second reason. And the third reason, it's more personal, I would say. I strongly believe that engineers is a really beautiful profession and can open up a lot of doors and it gives you a good life conditions, if I can say. And sometimes I'm really sad to think that some young women will not go in that field because they're afraid. They think that it's difficult and they're closing doors to a very nice profession that they could bring to a very beautiful life after. So on a personal matter, just if they choose not to come into a profession, but they're aware of what it is and they take en français on dit une décision éclairée, like
enlightenment,
like a well-informed decision.
So if they decide, but it's a well-informed decision, I'm happy with that. What I'm sad is that a lot of them are not well-informed, so they're closing doors that maybe they should not. So that's more on the personal side that I really believe that we need to make more efforts, at least to explain what's our profession, what we're really doing, and then they can make a decision.
Yes, absolutely. That's
a lot of that hits home, and I think I feel the same way. Like we shouldn't be kind of limiting what we can do based on biases or what other people think women should be doing. It should really be about what you want to do with your life. And I agree.
Yeah. And then again, like you're saying, diversifying the industry not only supports women, but it supports everyone in the end, because if it's just one group of people that are all thinking the same way, how are you able to connect with other groups, or how are you able to see things at different perspectives when you don't have that experience yourself? So if it's only men, how do you get the women's perspective? So it doesn't just help women, it does impact everyone else in a positive way. So it's good to know.
Yeah. And we're saying it, but I'm not sure you need to experience it to really believe in the force of diversity for innovation. And I remember when I did my studies at university, it was a lot of engineering work that you were doing by yourself. Yes, there was a lot of teamwork, but it was like 4 or 5, and we were all the same. And I'm saying that because I've studied in a way when I did my engineering, like I believe in me. I was doing the calculation. I was having good marks, and I was trying, and you understand? I went to do my MBA at HEC Montréal. And I got a shock when I first started there, because it was a lot of discussion in class, and you were doing your work at home, bring it back in class, and everybody was sharing what they thought of the case. And at first, I should not say that, but I was feeling that I was losing my time, because I read the case at home. I did like my solution, and I was like, it's really strong what I'm doing here, because I was used to do that at university. And university, it's not like you get at the end, the result is 25, it's 25, you understand? And when I was going into those classes, everybody was sharing their opinion. There was people from all around the world, women and men with different background. And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. So I really experienced the power of innovation and having views of everyone to get to a better solution. So it's just not saying it. I think when you experience it, you really believe in innovation that is coming from diversity. And it really helped me to see the force of having different views around it.
Yeah, and you're learning as you're seeing other people's perspectives. You think, oh my God, I didn't even go there. I didn't even think of that.
And then you embrace it because you've seen firsthand.
And you take that with you.
What are the...
And when you're good students and usually you have good marks, you think that you're good.
Right. And it's black and white in engineering in school. It's like, this is the answer, and if I get this answer, it's correct.
I know what I'm doing.
That's all. I got an A.
You understand? So it was a shock to me at first, and it changed all the way I'm working now in my life. I like to have the view of a lot of people, and then I gather in everything, and I build the best solution with the team. So I just wanted to share the force of innovation through my experience.
Absolutely. And so is there maybe a message that you want to let our viewers know to really hit this message we're talking about today home? Something that you'd like them to
take
hear?
Away.
Take away from
I think I said it earlier. I think it's a matter of everyone. And I think everyone is an ambassador of the profession on a daily basis. OIQ can put a lot of effort. Universities can put a lot of effort. But at the end of the day, I think that who can really change is the 65,000 members that are engineers. It's all the students that believe in engineering that are a force on the field that can promote what it is to be an engineer and be proud of our profession and explain it to everyone that wants to know more about it. And it's with our kids also, people that are having kids or having nephews. So you can have an impact on everyone to promote the importance of having women in our profession. So my message would be proud of what you do, share it, because most of the people don't understand really what we're doing. And by communicating it, it will help young women to have models and to be inspired by what you're doing. So they will maybe feel open to come to our profession. So that would be my general message to everyone.
That's great. And I think that was the goal of this episode, was to really show our audience and women out there especially that your province, and there are people out there who want to help you to find, either make the decision or just learn about it a bit more, just so you don't feel like you're so in the dark anymore.
And I would say, if you have the chance, bring young kids to your work. When you said it earlier, you didn't have any model to show you. And what we're hearing is that when you have an engineer near you and show you what it is to be an engineer, that have a huge impact on their career choice. So if you have the opportunity of brings family, friends, nephew to your work and show them what you do, it's been more concrete to them to make a better choice. So yeah,
that's great. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. I think this was an incredibly inspirational discussion, and even it encouraged myself as well doing my studies still. So it
never gets old to talk about it. Like we're obviously like women in engineering at Concordia. This is what we do all day long. We love to talk about it and advocate for the profession, and it just never gets old to talk about it and to meet people like you.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for inviting me. I want to congratulate you for the effort that you're putting to talk about it.
Thank you
and
so
when
much.
I see two young women like you coming to a profession, I'm really, really happy to see that, and hoping that you will have be able to influence much more other young women to come with us in our nice profession. So thank you for all the work that you're doing, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It means a lot.
Of course.